Hello everyone, and here we have a new story. Before we get to that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and be sure to write comments in order to participate in the development of the community. Write how to improve my community, current topics in the stories you are interested in, and much more. I read and listen to all the comments. People write me stories by mail from different countries. There are problems with translation. I apologize for this. I will work on it and try to fix these errors. I want to thank everyone for their support and the people who wrote to me by mail, broadcast, news stories. New videos on my channel are published once every 2 days at 7 p.m. Don't forget to put a bell in order not to miss new videos. And now let's go. Hello everyone. I want to share my story with everyone. Perhaps my experience will help someone not to make mistakes. I'm very sad to admit it, but my wife turned a joke into real life about a husband with antlers like a deer. 3 years ago, I laughed the loudest. When one of my colleagues told a similar story, wives only cheat on losers, I thought at that moment. Moreover, I married a girl who would never cheat on me in her life because she was already a victim of infidelity. I remember my wife talking about her failed marriage at the beginning of our relationship. When she found out about her husband's infidelity, she left and took the child with her. I couldn't even imagine that this poor woman would stab me in the back. Yes, this is how the above-mentioned expression about horns is interpreted, that you can grab your head with your hands from female betrayal. How did it happen that I married a divorced woman with a child? I still can't figure it out myself. I am 45 years old and I work in a factory. Nature has not deprived me of my appearance. I earn decent money at my home factory. In my youth, I had no problems with female attention. One day, my friend invited me to his party. It was there that I first saw my wife, but I didn't make plans for a serious relationship. And she said herself that she had just divorced. Girl devoted all her time to her little son. Her son was 1 year old. This woman was not up to love. But then our paths began to intersect very often in everyday life. The second time I met my wife in the store. Then I went for a walk in the park and we met again. We had a very good time. I began to wonder if this was fate. I felt a spark. I really liked this woman. As a result, I myself started deliberately walking near the house where she lived to see her more often. So I started taking care of my future wife. The girl clearly did not want to create a new family. But as time went on, our relationship began to gain momentum. The girl increasingly began to leave the child in the care of her mother so we can spend time together. When her son turned 3 years old, I invited her to live with me. Our life together started very well. I raised this child as my own. Time passed and we got married. That's how I became a husband and father. Although according to the documents, it was not my child. Time passed, everything was wonderful in our family. But a man appeared on my doorstep. It was my wife's ex-husband. My wife hated him with all her heart. But that day, she talked to him for a long time in the yard. When my wife returned to the house, she immediately started crying a lot. I asked what happened. Did he hurt you? The wife replied that no. Her ex-husband demands that she give him her son for a while. I asked with perplexity how to understand this. He demands that I let my son go for a walk with him or that he come to our house, the wife replied. Let me deal with him like a man, I suggested. In my opinion, this was the simplest solution. But then I thought about it and decided to approach the problem rationally. I began to explain to my wife that by law, he has the right to meet with the child. My wife threw a tantrum. She screamed that she would not be able to see this man in our house. I calmed my wife for a long time and offered to look for compromises. A few days later, her husband came again and demanded to see his child. I had a day off and I was at home. An ugly scene occurred. During our dialogue, my wife threw a tantrum again. I tried to calm everyone down. My wife's ex-husband started attacking me. I had to calm him down by force. He called the police during a showdown. We agreed on certain days. When he can pick up his son, I told him to come to his son the day I left for work. I went to work in the morning and came back the next day. I didn't want to see him in my house. My wife agreed. My wife's ex-husband didn't argue with that either. On the days when he came, my wife was often out of sorts. She said she still couldn't forgive him. My wife called him various bad words. But, on the other hand, she claimed that he turned out to be a very good father. He showered his son with gifts. Because of my dislike for this man, I did not ask for details about his visits to my house. Most likely, this was my main mistake. About 6 months later, the first call came, after the introduction of parental days into our lives. One day I was coming home and met a neighbor. A neighbor told me that he can find out about my work schedule by a taxi parked at night near your house. My wife's ex-husband worked as a taxi driver. That's why I didn't understand the neighbor's hint. I thought there was nothing wrong with that, because I knew that her ex-husband comes to us when I leave for work for the whole day. But I had to ask myself this question: why does a neighbor see a taxi at night? That's what I had to do, but I didn't think much of it. One day my son told me that Dad came and put me to bed. I was shocked. I immediately asked my wife, "Does your ex-husband stay in my house until late at night?" My wife replied with displeasure, "Yes, my ex-husband is very arrogant. My wife often reminds him of the late hour, that it was time for him to leave." But the denouement of my story came exactly the same as in that joke. As usual, I went to work for the whole day, but by the evening there was an emergency. Work at the plant was stopped. On this day, everyone was released to their homes. Naturally, my wife didn't know about it. I didn't even think to inform my wife about my unexpected return, so I got in my car and headed home. I arrive at the door of my house at 11 o'clock in the evening. The front door is locked. I'm trying to open the door with my key, but I still can't open the door because it's locked from the inside. I start knocking softly so as not to wake the child. At some point, I hear a sound outside the door. I was furious. I started calling my wife's mobile phone, but everything was unsuccessful. I started breaking down the front door. A child suddenly started crying outside the door. My wife abruptly opened the door. I jumped up in a rage and asked her one question: why did she take so long to open the door? There was no face on her. She stood and was silent and could not answer my question. At that moment, I already began to understand everything. I went to look for a lover in all the rooms. In the kitchen, I found my wife's ex-husband under the table. "Get out from under the table!" I shouted. He was sitting under the table and whining like a dog. I repeated that he got out from under the table. "Of course I'll beat you, but I won't hurt you too much." My wife's ex-husband was sitting under the table and didn't get out. I started pulling it out from under the table. My wife was crying and trying to stop me. The child was crying loudly. We woke up our neighbors. I was so ashamed when all this happened in front of my neighbor. I felt sorry for the child who was watching all this. Perhaps he needs to see a therapist. In general, I kicked this whole family out on the street. Wife, ex-husband, and their child together. My neighbor opened my eyes. As it turned out, her ex-husband came to my house in the morning, right after I left for work, spent the whole day at my house. They went for a walk with the child, and the next morning, the ex-husband left. The neighbor didn't want to tell me about it directly. I was shocked. They lived in my house. These people lived like a full-fledged family. After the walk, they had dinner, put the child to bed, and went to bed themselves. In my bed. In general, my wife has created another family in my house. In conclusion, I will tell everyone. This is a relationship with a divorced woman who has a child. It was the biggest mistake of my life. My friends and family warned me, but I didn't listen to them. However, all my relatives saw the danger in something else. They saw the danger in the child, but no one warned me that the danger could lie in my wife's infidelity, and not with some man. It will be my wife's ex-husband. Do you know what my wife said to me when she picked up her things? Technically, I didn't cheat on you, because I had sex with my ex-husband before you. I am shocked by the logic of the female sex. A year has passed. I'm living a new life. I'm doing well. I haven't found a new relationship yet. Maybe I'll get lucky and find a good girl. What can I say about my ex-wife? She was standing on my doorstep. She begged for forgiveness and wanted to return our relationship because her lover is gone again. Of course, I told her to leave and never come back. God, I still can't believe that someone else's family is fully living in my house. At the same time, I supported this family financially and provided them with my house. So men are a reason to think, when you connect your life with a divorced woman with a child, all the best and good relations. Now let's move on to the advice of the author of the channel. Channel author's advice. I am truly sorry to hear about the painful and difficult experience that you had to go through. It is clear that you had to face a difficult situation, and I can imagine what a mixture of emotions you must have experienced during this time. First of all, I want to thank you for sharing your story honestly. It takes courage to speak openly about such personal issues, and by doing so, you are helping others learn from your experience. Now let's focus on some tips for moving forward. Take some time to reflect on your past relationships and what you have learned from them. It is very important to understand your emotions and experiences before entering into a new relationship. Understand what went wrong, what you could have done differently, and what you expect from a future partner. Given the complexity of your situation and the impact it may have had on you, consider seeking help from a therapist or a counselor. They can provide valuable guidance on coping with emotional consequences if necessary. Prioritize your physical and mental well-being. Engage in activities that help you feel good and reduce stress. This may include exercise, hobbies, meditation, or quality time with friends and family. Trust may have been seriously damaged in your previous relationship, but it is crucial not to let it determine your future. Although caution is reasonable, try to approach a new relationship with an open heart and a willingness to trust again. Use this experience as a learning opportunity. Remember that not all divorced women with children are the same. Be open to getting to know someone for who they are, instead of making assumptions based on past experiences. Effective communication is the foundation of any successful relationship. Make sure that you have a clear, open, and honest communication with your potential partner to avoid misunderstandings and strengthen trust. Don't rush into a new relationship. Haste can lead to errors and missed red flags. Allow the relationship to develop naturally and don't feel the pressure to commit too quickly. At this time, rely on the support of your friends and family. They can offer valuable perspectives and emotional help as you move forward. Remember that every person and relationship is unique. Although your past experience was not easy, it does not determine your future. Be patient with yourself and keep your heart and mind open as you move forward. Love and happiness can still be a part of your life. I wish you all the best on your way to healing and finding a full and loving relationship. If you have watched to the end, I want to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I appreciate your support and encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this story. Your participation and feedback are invaluable for shaping our content and promoting mutual understanding and community growth. Until we meet again.